As you actually score the rubric, there are some things that you need to remember. So Cindy showed you then how to get into the scoring rubric. And before you start filling it out, just remember that these are short proposals. They're 1,000 words. That means that the authors really won't be able to put a lot of detail or fine points in their proposals. And for those of you who've also submitted proposals, you know that you had to make some decisions to stay within that 1,000-word limit about what to put in and what to leave out. And so you're really looking for your overall impression as well as some of those components that we ask you to score. But as you're going through, please remember that these are 1,000-word proposals and they will not have been able to include every detail. So as you're going through the rubric, there are several questions that you are asked to answer. The first is, was the proposal submitted to an appropriate section? One thing to remember here is that you're not being asked, was it submitted to what you think, in your opinion, is the best section for it to be submitted to, but is it appropriate? Many proposals could be submitted to more than one section. For example, there could be a proposal about a research project that is data-based that is about issues of family health in African American families. You can maybe hear that there are 3 different sections that this proposal could be submitted to. It could go to research and theory, it could go to families and health, or it could go to ethnic minorities. The authors should have made a decision about where they wanted that to go, and then the section chairs have also done a very cursory review, at least of titles of each of the proposals that have been submitted to them, and sometimes they have found that it needed to go to a different section. But if when you're reading it you feel as though it has been submitted to the wrong section, then please answer that question no, and give that section chair a heads up about where you think may be an appropriate section for that to go. From here on, the questions now are asking you to use a Likert type scale from excellent with a 5 to weak at a 1. And the first question is, how complete is the work that is being described in the proposal? Do you think that this has the opportunity to be a polished, well-presented presentation at the conference? Is it far enough along that it will be ready and it will be a high-quality presentation? If you feel that it's very strong and it's all done, then you may give that a very high score. If you're seeing it as being in flux or in process, it may not receive that 5, but give us an idea of how confident you are that this will be a strong proposal in November. The next issue for you is the approach itself that is used. And Cindy talked about how we have asked the authors to identify the focus of the proposal. And some may be teaching techniques, others may be papers about a theory, while still others may have policy that they are emphasizing. And so what we're asking you to do with this question is to think about the methodology that is appropriate for that particular focus. And did they use a methodology that fit the question and the conclusions that they came to at the end? Next, we're asking you to look at both the theoretical and the research support for this particular project. Is it built on solid theoretical foundation? Does it have the research literature that leads us to ask this next question? Whether it's a teaching technique or a policy implication or a theory or a research paper, all of those issues are important, both theoretical and a good research base. And we ask you to rank those separately. Then the next questions are more about your overall impression. One is asking, do you think this really has the potential to stimulate further knowledge, to move the field forward in this area? And once again, whether it's a teaching technique or something else, a research project, in each case, is it moving us forward in the field? And we ask you to give us a score there. And then how well written was it? Was it well organized? Did it use good grammar? Did it read easily? Could you have a good idea of what it is they would do in November at the conference? Are the mechanics solid? Are the references complete? Did they actually cite the references that they referred to? Those are the kinds of things that we ask you to look at in that question. Once you have gone through all of those, as Cindy showed you, it will give you a score at the bottom where it has added up all of your questions. And this year, a perfect score could be 30. And that's a higher score than in the past because we have more single questions than we have had. So this year, there is a cutoff of about 18 for proposals that will be considered for acceptance in the conference and those that will not be considered. So as a reviewer, as you've gone through and filled out each one of those questions individually and the scoring rubric has added up for you at the bottom, if you get to the bottom and you see that it is right around 18 or that it's far over or far under, a question for you to ask yourself is, does this reflect my overall impression? Tom's going to talk to you a little bit more about how those decisions get made and what they're looking for as section chairs, but as you're going through the rubric, an important thing for you to remember is to pay attention to that bottom line score. Another thing important to remember is that each section has some awards that they give out, and these are often determined by that final score. So if you have read a proposal that you think is absolutely marvelous, then you want to make sure you give it a score that puts it in the running for some of those awards.